We want to thank you for coming back to the shooting range for week 4, Scratching the Surface. Thank you to panel judges for being with us tonight. Please raise your hand when I call you. Welcome back, Maggie Hood of Mag Hood Photography from New Brunswick. Joining us from Ontario, we have Spencer Wynn of Spencer Wynn Photography. And last but certainly not least, Ronald Lee of Ronald Lee Studios from British Columbia. We want to let you know that the challengers have mentioned that they are getting so much value from the generous donation of your time and mentoring. So thank you again. This week, guest judge Maya Ramsahoye is a model, makeup artist, and educator, and delegate for Miss Universe Canada 2022. We initially hoped to bring Maya on as our TSR host, but Maya had a scheduling conflict. Nonetheless, within moments of chatting with Maya about her experience of judgment and stereotypes in the fashion and beauty industry, we knew that we had the right person for this match brief. We are so pleased to have you with us for week 4, Scratching the Surface. How were you able to resolve your conflict for this week?
Honestly, I just looked at my opportunities and I rated them from what seems to be more of a priority right now. For those who don't know, I teach a makeup class at a aesthetics college in Edmonton. So I had a class tonight, like right over top of this, but I looked at this opportunity to be able to talk to so many people and be able to partake in this opportunity because I love this whole concept. So, I looked at it and I was like, this is something that comes around very rarely. So this is a priority right now. So honestly, I just prioritize this, and I've noticed that if things are really important and really worth having, everything can be rearranged.
Thank you so much, Maya. Ronald wanted to ask the shooters if they felt that this week's brief was extraordinary, and admin feels confident in answering a resounding yes on their behalf. Now, in case you are not aware of this just yet, TSR aims to expand boundaries and get people thinking about photography on a more cerebral level. We do this by creating opportunities for everyone involved to connect not only with craft and community, but with oneself. Stereotypes exist on the surface, but we are deeply rooted in unconscious biases that shape the way that we view and experience the world. Within nanoseconds, our brains are able to stitch together millions of pieces of information that lead to narratives, assumptions, and feelings, even when we know little or nothing about someone or something. In preparation for this week, challengers and judges were asked to participate in an exercise used in equity, diversity, and inclusivity awareness education. A list of people is given, and participants are instructed to become aware of whatever thoughts pop into their heads. Influencer, nurse, gym rat, elementary school teacher, pilot, waitress, foreign driver, CEO. While I was reading this list, your brain was busy filling in blanks with gender, age, education, and social status, as well as character traits like, are they shallow, entitled, generous, self-absorbed, lazy, kind, and so forth. Now, don't feel bad about that. The purpose of the exercise isn't to stir feelings of guilt or shame. It is simply to bring awareness to the fact that we all make snap judgments. The first thing that comes to mind about plastic surgeon is usually boobs, butts, and blowfish lips. But in reality, plastic surgeons also reconstruct tissue and descar burn victims' bodies, repair birth defects like cleft palates, and research how to restore sensation, function, and mobility after nerve damage and spinal cord injuries. When people start unpacking unconscious bias, they are often surprised at what comes up. The bad news is humans will never stop making snap judgments. The good news is research shows that confronting bias when it becomes conscious actually reprograms the neural networks in our brains, resulting in an ability to be more open, curious, and accepting of ourselves and others. Judges, this brief brought each and every one of us face to face with bias. Our question for you is, what did you learn about yourselves this week? Does anybody want to go first?
I mean, for me, like going through that exercise was eye-opening. And I think before that, I was aware of judgments and, you know, those snap judgments that we make. And it also made me start to wonder what snap judgments people are making about me personally, you know, like what are the preconceived notions? And it's really interesting. And like, I kind of, even just when you were just talking, I was going back through just different instances. Like I know I showed up to shoot a wedding once, and I think it was the mother of the bride. And like, I was in like wedding attire. I was very professional, and she wouldn't open the door because I was so young, and she didn't know, like, she just thought I was this random hooligan. And I'm like, okay, like I wasn't even wearing a toque. And, you know, it's just those biases. So I guess, you know, I think this week it made me think deeper and to really try and be conscious of, you know, when I make those snap judgments myself, and to be aware of them and to start to correct them.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Ronald?
As far as myself, I can see how my way of seeing things has changed over since when I first started in photography to now. So basically, I did see that personally, on a personal level, that my views and my evolution has done some distance.
Thank you. Maya?
I'm probably sitting at the same spot that I was before the challenge was even announced. But what I like to see is that I truly like to see everybody else, what they have underneath and what they're going on. And I love seeing everybody else's perspective. And I love that when it comes to issues like this, there's kind of a collective perspective. There's a collective idea. And honestly, things like this bring people together. So all I've learned is that we all think that we're all so diverse, and of course we are, but if you break us down, we all kind of have an understanding over quite a few things.
Thank you, Maya. How about you, Spencer?
I think as photographers, we're naturally a little bit more observant and accepting of different lifestyles and situations. And I know the years I spent in the newsroom, inclusiveness and acceptance and non-bias was really, really a key factor to reporting and writing. But so I was pretty comfortable with what I was reading, but what did occur to me was that I still had more to learn. You know, you can always learn more, but in some cases, a cis male, I'd never heard of that. I had to go and look that up. So, you know, it was a really interesting education, and it shows that we all have still room to grow.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for your honesty in that question. We appreciate that. So for the brief this week, challengers were tasked with not only finding a model, getting to know them, then photographing a mold they wanted to break. To keep it focused on making connections, the budget was $0. You had to beg, borrow, barter, or be clever with whatever you and your model had on hand. So let's take a look at what they've come up with. Hope, slide 1, please. Shooters, admin wanted to applaud all of you for the incredible thought and care you put into creating this week's images. It's time to see who this week's sharpshooter is, who needs more target practice, and who will be leaving the firing line. In 6th place, we have Kayla, bring back manly men. In 5th place, we have Jean-Francois with Drag King. And in 4th place, we have Virginia with Weighty Expectations. Jean-Francois, Virginia, Kayla, you are not up for elimination this week, but you are not out of the crosshairs. If you haven't been taking notes, we suggest you start tonight because many of the same comments are made week to week. This is Joanna's image, smashing stereotypes. Johanna, the idea of shattering limiting beliefs is a big thing for you, not just as a photographer, but as a person. Can you briefly explain why breaking stereotypes is so important to you?
So I think that coming to snap judgments on people just based on one look or one brief encounter, it doesn't, it's not fair. I mean, stereotypes are, I don't know, they're sort of like, we shouldn't ever hold somebody in a category. We are more than just a mother, more than just somebody with autism, and we are more than just one thing, and that's, our humanity is what makes us diverse, and that diversity actually is a way that we are all connected because we are so many different layers as people. And so I feel like a stereotype is just, you know, a way that we put people into these categories, but they rise above what that title is, especially with negative stereotypes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sorry, that was like really incoherent.
That's okay.
Wasn't expecting to be first.
You know, you're right. We're not meant to be put in categories because the reality is that we probably fit into more than one, right? So it's best just to get to know people instead of making that snap judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I meant, what you said.
Okay. Ronald, none of the judges, including you, were mad about the words used on the blocks in Johanna's image. But often words or writing in images that are supposed to show and not tell the story are a detriment. Let's assume this image was going to be shown in a country where English wasn't spoken or used. Are there ways this idea could have been portrayed without resorting to actual written words?
That's a very interesting question. The easiest route out for these other countries is that they would actually just put a different language in place of the words, you know, in the promotions or advertising. I guess they could put, you know, the photographer could put illustrations on each board to show these. That would actually make it a little harder. Overall, I mean, the overall concept of breaking through the stereotypes by literally breaking the boards was brilliant. Like, I really like that because it was impactful enough of its own. Whether there's another way to convey the types of stereotypes in the boards, yeah, that's a really good question. I don't really have an answer for that because translating literal text into representative images, you know, that's what creative thinking and you know, it takes some time to really workshop that idea. Overall, I thought the image was impactful.
Okay, thank you, Ronald. Maya, this image resonated with you on a deep level in terms of breaking through. How well do you feel this image broke through the stereotypes or judgments someone might face with invisible stigma, such as neurodiversity, mental health, or learning differences?
I feel mental health is, I'm honestly sometimes a little bit afraid to talk about it because it is so deep, and I don't know one person who doesn't have their own story, their own struggles, their own world that they're dealing with. But I feel like this image, when you put words that are so impactful and the words that are used are not, I guess they're very just right to the point. They're like, there's the words, you don't have to think, oh, well, what does that mean? You know what it means. So the fact that you are willing to use words that are so like we hear them all the time. We don't know if we're using them correctly. I feel like that made such more of an impact, considering you're looking at it and you're like, holy smokes, like it hits you harder because you're not sitting, you don't have to think until after you've gotten it. So yes, I'm sitting here thinking about the image, but the way that it shows me right now from just looking at it, you already know how to feel. And I think because it's so direct and so intense, I feel like that's the most impact, because it's like a punch in the face. It's like, hey, this is where we're at. This is where we need to think. So I truly think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of putting yourself out there to write those kinds of things and actually smash through them. I feel like it's just super impactful, and you've interpreted something probably that was very internal, and you've made it external and kind of worked through that. So I really appreciate that about this image.
Thank you, Maya. This image is done by Matt, and it's called Cut Your Hair. Matt, you ended up using the first 45 minutes of your hour-long shoot just chatting with your model. Can you talk a bit about your experience this week and what you love about the image you collaborated on?
Yeah, so I had met Ash a couple days prior to the shoot. A friend of my wife's at work, and he told me he was interested in the shoot, but he hadn't let anyone take his photo in like almost a decade. He also avoided mirrors anytime he could because he was really uncomfortable looking at himself. But he had recently kind of gained a little bit of confidence and was thinking about opening himself up to that. So yeah, we didn't get a lot of time to shoot, but at the end, he said he would like to try it again. So that's good enough for me. And I wouldn't have known that, like zero idea of what his life story is without having that 45 minutes to talk or any time to talk. So I think it's something that's pretty transferable into any human relationship you have. Just talk and listen and be humble enough to ask dumb, ignorant questions, in an earnest fashion. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this will change the way that you approach other clients or other people that you will photograph?
Yeah, I think that if I know somebody's coming into the shoot without a lot of experience or they're feeling uncomfortable, then I think I have like a pretty good roadmap as to what I should do. Book a little bit extra time and make sure we spend that first bit of time talking and let them know that like we're just humans first, and if we get shots, great, we can always book it again. So in this case, with time constraints, it's a little more difficult in that route, but I'll definitely use some of the skills learned for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Maya, you love the sentiment behind a transitioning male bucking the norm of cutting his hair to look more manly. You also felt the no cares given, but like some of the other judges, felt the message wasn't clear. As a model, what directions might you have wanted from a photographer, either before or during the shoot, to ensure that the hair was a focal point?
I think that this would be where you need to catch the model in their element and take the pressure off. So I know that there have been countless times where I've been shooting and I like their photographers constantly clicking, but I'm just like, this isn't working for me. I'm not feeling it. And honestly, some of my best shots have come from me not even looking at the camera. I'm out to lunch somewhere else. So I feel like if this model felt a little bit more out of the focus of the lens and you just happen to be able to shoot that, what that person looks like when they're just in their relaxed element, it may have been a little bit different. However, what stood out to me when you were speaking is the fact that you took that time to connect with that model. The amount of times that people in this industry feel like a number, I usually feel like just a number. So the fact that you took the time to connect with that person and make sure that they had that comfort before, I feel like your shoot will have gone from like just a shoot to something that now has impacted that person, that they feel like they can move forward. However, to get the message a bit clear, honestly, sometimes if you feel like it's not showing through right away, it's probably because there's a bit too much pressure. So if you feel like, try not to think of it as like, I'm shooting for this reason, try to just, be sneaky about it. Be like, can I catch this person off guard to see what they are like when they don't have that pressured environment. Because let's be real, whether you're the person behind the camera or in front of the camera, there's that pressure to pose that right way, get that shot. So if you could have captured it when that model or that person wasn't even knowing their environment, then maybe it could have shone, the message could have shone through a little bit better.
Thank you, Maya. Spencer, you and the other judges commented that if the hair is the star of the image, the photographer should go ahead and make the hair the star. You commented before that you are a big fan of experimenting with crops. How would cropping this image tighter or even shifting to landscape orientation have helped make the hair the star?
First of all, I really like what Matt had to say about spending time, just spending time speaking with him and getting to know his story. And even if there's just 5 minutes left in the shoot, as Maya said, just getting those little sneak moments between moments when he's got his guard down. Maybe they're sharing a joke or something and he looks off and he's laughing. Maybe that's the shot there, rather than, you know, full on light or however it was lit in a formal sort of setting. But to answer your question, there's, you know, it's relative to the size of the frame. The face and the hair is a very small percentage. I'd love to see and come right in close. I don't think we need the chair. We just need from, you know, maybe the chair up. Maybe it's a nice square image, but I don't have a connection with him. I went and blew it up so I could have a closer look at him, and I'd like to have that bit of intimacy. So come in close and yeah, get the hair and like get fistfuls of it and really have some fun with it too. I think probably he'd really enjoy that. And, you know, that's kind of a bit of a safety blanket for him. But really, you know, really have a little bit of fun. And in having that fun, maybe he'll relax a little bit and you might be able to get just a little bit of those moments coming through, but you'd also make more of a connection with us by really zooming in on what's important.
Thank you so much, Spencer. This image is done by Martha, Undecided Dinks, or also known as double income, no kids. Martha, all of the judges felt this story had a very strong editorial look and loved how genuinely happy the couple is. Was this your first concept?
This was my first concept. I got a little bit sidelined because we had a terrible snowstorm for 2 days and I couldn't get out of here. So I had an hour, a window of an hour to get this done, to get home, get it edited and uploaded. So there was sort of no room for changing the plan. I had to go with plan A, and I feel good about, you know, what I produced. The idea of it being an editorial style is exactly what I was going for. That very professional appearance. These are both professional engineers, and that was the vibe I was going for.
Awesome. Thank you, Martha. Maya, some of the judges, including you, felt it was difficult to connect with the intended idea of happy dinks. When you need to connect with a feeling or a sentiment, how do the directions you are given by the creative director or photographer change the way you interact with props, or in this case, fur babies, so that you successfully embody the desired emotion?
I can clearly see that this couple was happy. I can see that this image is too perfect. Actually, this is something I've heard endlessly in my career, is the image is too perfect. And sometimes you lose emotion in being a perfectionist when it comes to shooting that image. If you had got your models to just be in their natural environment, just be looking at each other, just be laughing, just like the cats are posed perfectly. How you get cats to pose like that, I don't know, but it's amazing. But it's too poised, it's too perfect. So I feel like it could have been a little bit more, the more connection, a little bit more of a feeling, like a grasping feeling, if I can look at it and be like, oh, that's what you caught them in a moment of them like being who they actually are. I love the photo and I love the way that it's represented. However, a little bit more of a natural feel could probably have grasped a bit more connection.
Thank you, Maya. Maggie, this image was an almost perfect technical shot, but like Maya, you did not read Happy Dink in the image. Despite the title and the information provided in the artist statement, in terms of visual cues that people can be happy and undecided or uninterested in procreation, do you have any ideas on how Martha could have injected more storytelling into this image?
So, I mean, for me, like when I went through and saw this image, I was like, this is a beautiful image. It's so clean, it's well lit. Like, this is something that I would put on my website if I shot it, because it is going to attract a multitude of clients. And I get how you posed cats. I have no idea. Amazing job. So really, really well done on this shot. In terms of storytelling components into how to kind of get that story across more, I like what Maya said about maybe a little more natural, interactive kind of component to it might have helped. I think for me, like if you're trying to tell that story, I don't know, again, this would be damn near impossible with cats, but you seem to have a way with them. Kind of maybe being a little playful and putting kids in a situation, or the cats in a situation that kids would be in. So we get this understanding that, you know, these people are completely happy not having kids and treating their cats as their kids. I mean, I'm that person. Like I have like a small zoo here, right? I have no kids and we treat our pets like our kids. So I don't know exactly how to do that, but just kind of, I'm just a little maybe more playful or something in that respect. But again, overall, this image was technically and like a beautiful, beautiful image.
And we had talked about, my husband assisted me on this, and he had suggested, you know, like, let's put a baby bonnet on one of them and a bow tie on the other one. But I didn't want to humanize the cats. So that was a conscious choice.
Okay.
Not to do that, but I totally agree with more interactiveness. Absolutely.
Thank you. This image is done by Nikki Lynn, and it's called The Pressure of Perfection. Nikki Lynn, you've said since the beginning of the competition that 2 areas of photography you really wanted to explore and improve are storytelling and composites. How well did this week's match brief fit your personal goals?
Well, both perfectly, actually, because when I watched the video that Maya had done, my first thought was I was just kind of confused, like what was expected of us. I wasn't really sure. But then when I figured it out, I just knew almost exactly what I wanted to do. And my first thought was having Chris, like it was this friend of mine that I already deeply connect with, that I just knew I wanted to use her. But my first thought was just having her doing all this in just one image. And I just thought that's going to be too busy. How is she going to be doing all this stuff in one? It would just be too busy. So then I thought about doing this, and I have never done this. This is the first time I've ever tried anything like this before. So there was a bit of a learning curve there. You know, I had to kind of figure out how to do it, but it was fun. It was fun. We really connected. I went to her place the one night. I gave her the idea of what I wanted to do, and then we did kind of like a fun shoot with it. And then we went back and we decided to do it this way. And I took a lot of her ideas, like it was her that decided or just thought about using the blue dress, because at first we were going to have her dressed differently in every one, but I liked the metaphoric dress of kind of continuing through the whole photo. It was her that told me like what the thoughts she would have, like when I did my artist statement. So the storytelling and everything came together really from the both of us. And I do feel like I learned a lot this week. It was a fun project.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nikki Lynn. Maya, as a model, you are in some ways the embodiment of perfection. Yet in your critique, you mentioned that unrealistic expectations of female perfectionism still need to be brought to light. The model was styled in a fashionable dress, has an impeccably clean home, and gets everything done, then hides to collapse and have some wine. Do you think this image would have made a stronger statement against perfectionism if the model or her home had appeared more disheveled? And why or why not?
I love the way that it's interpreted. I feel like if her home was messy, if she was not dressed up, and if she looked a little bit more undone and her home looked that way, then you know that same issue isn't brought to life, you know, where if you have a certain title, you have these certain expectations to be primed and proper, and all the time you have to be 100%. You've got to be constantly organized, constantly clean, everything has to be perfect all of the time. So I really like the fact that it shows that this is that what she's wearing looks like what people see from the outside. What she's doing is what people expect from the outside. And then when she's got the wine and she's down on the floor, that's truly how she feels. But I like that it's behind the counter, because it kind of shows that that's not what people see. We sometimes know that it's there, but no one wants to acknowledge it. So I love the fact that it looks that way, because it shows in the photo what people see as well as what they think, but things that we don't acknowledge. Like, we all know that there's a point in the day when you just want to collapse with a glass of wine, but nobody likes to acknowledge that. They still expect you to get back up and keep going. So I feel like if the photo had been a little bit more messy per se, it wouldn't have given the same impact, because then, well, people would just label it as, oh, she's having a rough day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and actually she is this way. Her house is never messy and like that. So I didn't want to make it something that it wasn't. And like it's very, the only thing that we actually added was the pictures of the kids' pictures on the wall. Those weren't even on there, but I decided we should just maybe put those on there.
Thank you. Ronald, the feminist perception of a second shift persists because women still bear the brunt of domestic duties like child rearing, cooking, and cleaning. However, many men participate more equally in these duties, and most of them also do their work at a computer, like this woman. Yet you felt the representation of this single mom doing everything fell short. Could you explain how Nikki Lynn might have given more weight to the work she does, or created more balance between domestic and non-domestic work? And why do you think it would have had more of an impact?
All right, so for first, technically, this image I thought was well done. Just minor point about some color to the right, but the main one main point about how the brief doesn't so much match the image itself is because the brief reads as a woman who can do it all and is doing it all, which is great. The actions and everything the woman's doing here is everything a housewife does. The only thing that seems like she might be doing something beyond that is at the table with her computer. And I don't know if she's browsing, like, what is she working, or is she just, looking at the internet? So I see that she's, this composite shows that the woman is busy, but it looks like she's busy being a housewife. I can see how, according to the artist's statement, like the photographer is trying to show that she's really busy at all times. But if she could show that she's doing things outside of the scope of, working in the home, that would match her statement a bit more.
Do you think, Hope and I had been talking about this earlier, and do you think that maybe something as simple as having that laptop at every aspect of what she's doing domestic wise would also convey that?
I'm not sure about having the laptop everywhere, because again, we don't know what she's doing with the laptop, and we do want to see other actions. But if you mean that she's busy working, maybe doing computer work, stock trading or whatever, that I can see that. And like Maya said, if the model was wearing different clothing as well, like pajamas and then outside clothing and then sports clothing, then you can see, oh, okay, this is not within the kitchen only. She's all over the place. Then we can get that.
Okay, thank you. This image is done by Stacy. It is called Marijuana or 420 Mom. Stacy, despite legalization of marijuana, stigma like being lazy, disorganized stoners is applied to 420 moms, while wine moms seem to get a free pass. After asking your co-competitors for feedback to see if your concept was hitting the mark, suggestions including exaggerating your concept by putting the folded laundry in baskets, showing your model crossing items off of her to-do list while smoking a joint, or somehow illustrating the contrast between wine and weed. You considered reshooting, but ultimately decided to stick with what you had shot. What made you doubt your concept and ask for feedback?
Okay, so honestly, Ronald, you make me doubt every concept I have since week 1, when I intentionally made my image really stressful and you said, I get you're going for stress, but it's too stressful. So now every single week, I'm like, oh my God, is this too busy? Is this like too much in the frame? Is it going to be distracting? Because every week you mark me really low, like really low. So what was the question? I feel like I went off.
Just as a reminder to you and all to the challengers that Ronald doesn't know whose image is whose.
Oh, I know. But that's why I feel like my images are really busy every week. And I feel like busy, overwhelming equals bad. That's like what I'm getting. I feel like I could clean it up. I could do it busier, but I need to like tidy it up.
Okay.
And that's something I need to work on, obviously, because it's like every week.
So the question was, what made you doubt your concept and ask for feedback from the other challengers this week?
The busyness.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Maya, models are still widely treated as props. They are asked and sometimes contractually obligated to pose for campaigns or products they might not be comfortable with. This could be anything from sex toys and aids and incontinence products to polyamory and, as Stacy has depicted, marijuana consumption. While this wasn't the case with Stacy's image, a professional model will lose out on paid gigs if they fear a shoot might affect their personal or professional reputation. What effect do you think balanced, realistic lifestyle concepts like this will have on stimulating conversation on subjects that remain in the shadows because they trigger so much judgment?
This is tough because everybody does what they do because they have reasons for it. So, for example, what I choose to take on for campaigning, let's say a brand came to me like, oh, do you want to shoot with this? Well, I might say yes for a reason because that's something that's fine for me. And whereas someone else may say no just because they come from a different background. I think honestly, it's finding the balance comes from who you talk to. So if I don't want to shoot a campaign for marijuana, well, that shouldn't have to affect my career, and I shouldn't get judgment around that. Whereas if you found a model or someone who was wanting to do that, they shouldn't get judgment because they were willing to do that. It's because they were willing to shoot that. It's no different than there's no difference if I say yes to a job or if I say no to a job. There shouldn't be any issue around that. I do feel like every single issue that you could ever think of in this world needs to be talked about, whether it's a positive connotation or a negative connotation, but nobody should be judged for how they feel about a certain issue. Everybody comes from their own place. Everybody has their own reasoning. So I don't think that any professional setting or professional person should be categorized based off jobs they took and jobs they didn't take. Like, for example, if I don't want to take a certain job, that shouldn't be like, oh, she's a prude, or oh, I just don't want to take it. It's like, if you got offered a job you didn't want, what's the difference? You just be like, not for me, but it's for somebody else. And for that person who takes something that's maybe like negative or stigmatized, it's like, well, it's not your cup of tea, don't drink it. That's all I got to say for that. But no, I think that if you do what you do for your life, and no one's going to agree with it all the time. So whatever benefits you and what you want to do, there should never be a professional condescending view on it.
Thank you, Maya. Spencer, Stacy was concerned that her image would not be understood. All three panel judges got the concept, but felt the image needed refinement, noting that the background was tonally similar or busy or more than needed. To make the mom mug and joint more of a focal point, Maggie suggested compressing the image by having the model lean forward and away from the clutter, while both you and Ronald suggested a crop. Can you talk a bit about why you feel minimizing visual clutter is important for making a message of an image clear?
I never thought of that, but I like the idea of actually, if she were to just bend forward a little bit and get her face a little sharper, that would be good. Her face is just a bit too soft. She's a little bit too far away, and it's pretty shallow depth of field. But I think if we came in closer and made more of the joint, because that's an important, and the mom mug, that's a really important part of the picture. That's really the whole point. But I just found that I like the busyness, but I think that coming in from the sides and just exaggerating that busyness around her. If you came in, I'm just using my hands here. If you came in kind of halfway on each of the cushions on both sides, you don't need that extra room. And it really would just bring us a little bit closer, and it would make her appear a little bit more crowded. And in that environment, you'd be exaggerating the environment that way. There's just a little bit too much on the sides. So by coming in close, we get a little bit tighter on the message. But at the same time, we're also kind of exaggerating that busyness, which is important to this. And it's a really great contrast to the pretty clean foreground element.
Thank you, Spencer. This image is by Shauna, and it's called 16. This week seemed to have pulled some heartstrings. How did you find the shift from a technical challenge to one that was more cerebral and emotional?
It was harder, and I think it was harder because the model is my daughter. So we had some pretty in-depth conversations leading up to the shoot, just to understand exactly how she's feeling at this point in her life. And I really wanted to convey her message and how she's feeling properly. So that's why we chose to go with the masks, because she's always saying how to different people she's all these different characters, and she doesn't know who she is in her, like her will I ever get through this step without sweating? She doesn't know who she is in her core and in her being. So I guess I just really wanted to convey what she was saying to me and how she was feeling. And yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Shauna. Maggie, You mentioned in more than one critique this week how important the environment is to lending context to a scene. You enjoyed the simplicity and clarity of the message, appreciated the choice of lighting, and felt it included just enough information to convey the meaning without overwhelming the viewer. While you had nothing but positives to say about this image, it fell short of earning full marks for you. Could you elaborate on how this image could have been elevated a 10 out of 10 for you?
I mean, that's tough. And like for me, honestly, like a lot of my voting is like, I'll be completely honest, when I go through and look at the images every week, I look at the images before I go anywhere near the artist's statement. Mainly for me, because I love being able to look at an image and try and immediately kind of see what you guys want the viewer to see and what story needs to be told. And I loved this and all the different elements that were in this image, from the time that was taken to like print out the images and put them in the mirror, to the sash and the mask, all the different elements. So a lot of my voting, or like my judging comes from gut. So a lot of it is just kind of how the image makes me feel, and not a lot of it is technical. So I mean, like from a technical perspective, this image is great, the lighting's good. I mean, maybe maybe seeing the face a little bit more, and I know, I guess the point is the mask is there to cover the face and you don't see the face. I don't know, I guess I like, honestly, it's just kind of like a gut thing for me, and how the image initially came off. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to think about that. That's a really good question.
Thank you, Maggie. Maya, this image, perhaps more than any other, resonated with you on a deep personal level. As a person working in an industry that is known to manufacture insecurity and perpetuate unrealistic ideals of perfectionism starting in the preteen years, do you feel the campaigns featuring sentimental concepts like this are effective, or do they need to be more in your face to make a real change?
I think that all the campaigns and everything, and everybody trying to spread the awareness, I don't think it's about the actual campaign itself. I think it's about who's saying it. So it's the people and the person who's saying it, or who's being impacted, who's saying it, is the most impactful part. So for example, for some, I don't know, let's say Kim Kardashian wants to talk about her how she's struggling with cyberbullying, for example. Well, that's great, but no one's really going to listen to that because, well, she's a celebrity, everybody thinks about it. But if you look at somebody who maybe they look like they have everything together, they look like their life's not too difficult, they wouldn't have those kinds of things, and they speak up about it, you kind of sit back and wonder, and you're like, oh, this is actually an issue, and this is so much more. So do I think those campaigns are great? Yeah, because it's a conversation starter, but the real impact comes from who is saying it. And so that's truly what I try to strive for, is like, I try to be as real as possible, so that when I do say something, it's a little bit more impactful, as opposed to, like I said, just being one more person who wants to preach about it. But it's about who, and the fact that this photo depicts a daughter or a young girl she has no title. She's just a person who's struggling. She's real. She's relatable. That this is something that's happening for her. I feel like that is so much more impactful than someone who's sitting there like banging that drum all the time. It's just about who is saying it that makes the impact.
Thank you, Maya. So judges, that's it for our top three and bottom three. I have a moment or two if anybody would like to say anything about the images that were shown this week.
So it's Ronald here.
Hi, Ronald.
One quick comment about us as judges and looking at all the images. Personally, when I look at images, I have a personal bias. My personal bias is I'm coming from commercial as well as fine art, creative light. Those three sort of blend together for me. So don't worry too much about what any one particular audience or person says about your work. if you keep going and you're consistent about it, that becomes your style, and your work will evolve anyway. Like looking at my first pieces 10 years ago when I was starting to do commercial stuff to now, it's way different. So, I wouldn't take any concern or offense to the way that we're judging, keeping in mind that we are a very limited audience, and you will find, if you're consistent and keep going and growing, you'll find an audience for your work.
Yes, thank you, Ronald. We've told the challengers from the beginning to take all of the judges' critiques with a grain of salt, because you are all coming from different genres and aspects of photography. So you are all going to have different opinions. And if we were to get 4 more judges, they would also all have different opinions. So the key is to look at what's being said and see if it's consistently being said week after week, right? So we move on to the sad part of the night, where we talk about who is going to be eliminated. So our bottom 3 this week are Stacy, Martha, and Matt. In 7th place, Martha. In 8th place, we have Stacy. So that means, Matt, that you will be eliminated from the competition this week. We are sad to see you go and hope that you'll stick around to try the challenges for the rest of the competition. As a free agent, you are welcome to stick around the Challenger Forum and poke, advise, and cheer on your fellow challengers. We wish you the absolute best, both in life and in your photography. And we look forward to following your work and continuing to support you on your journey as a photographer. Judges, do you have any parting advice or words of encouragement for Matt?
Yeah, I think just keep shooting and really focusing so much of your attention on really what is the core message that you're trying to convey, and really make it simple so that it's accessible without having to read anything, and really just experiment and which I totally believe in, make lots of mistakes as well.
I agree. Would anybody else like to say anything?
I just kind of want to touch on, I know like this week it was a challenge, Matt, and you were set with something to do, but I think the biggest thing to take away from this week is that you made a huge difference in your subject's life. It might not have seemed like a very big deal initially, but you can't know the impact of having that conversation with him and taking the time that you spent and listened. Like, honestly, to me, those moments are way more important than any image you can ever create. So kudos to you for taking the time to do that and for doing it the right way.
I agree. Thank you, Maggie.
I would like to say that I really, you nailed it with the whole photographer working with a model, the connection piece. I feel like that's super missed half the time. And the fact that you were willing to take your time to invest in somebody else's life and somebody else's journey in order for them to just make that hour with you a little bit more comfortable. If more people did that in this industry, then I feel like it would be a very different place. So the fact that you did that is incredible. Like Maggie said, kudos to you. That's amazing. I love that. And I really hope that you go on to teach others to do that, because that's something rare. Honestly, as easy as it should be, it's very rare. So I really appreciate that. And I really enjoyed watching your work.
As Spencer said, keep shooting. Like that could be your photography superpower, what Maya just mentioned.
Thank you. Matt, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
Just thanks to everybody for taking the time to do this. It's like a huge undertaking for the judges and the photographers and the admins. So it's pretty cool to be part of this. And good luck to everybody else. Take a breath. Take maybe like a couple hours off chat once in a while to let your brains clear out a little bit, because I know it definitely overtook my brain a few times. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm sad I got knocked out on this shot particularly, but the shoot was worth it. So it's cool opportunity. So thanks to everybody.
Thank you so much, Matt. All right, let's see which shooter really scratched beneath the surface this week. So these are our top three: Johanna, Shauna, and Nikki Lynn. In third place, we have Johanna. In second place, we have Shauna. And that means that Nikki Lynn, you are the winner and sharpshooter this week. Congratulations. How does it feel to be a challenge winner this week?
Yeah, I can't believe it. I really, I had this idea and I really wanted to do it and I was really excited about it. And then when I started seeing everybody else's images, I was like, oh, I am way off the mark here. It just goes to show like how hard you can be on yourself. And I don't know, I'm glad. I mean, it's really exciting and I'm happy, but I really didn't expect it. So thank you.
So Nikki, this week you are the prize winner, and this prize was generously supplied by Amanda Diaz Photography. So you will be receiving a posing class valued at $97. We will have more information about Amanda Diaz on the Sponsor Spotlight post on Saturday. Thank you, Amanda, for your support. I'm sure Nikki Lynn will put this prize to great use going forward.
Absolutely. I need that. Thank you.
So we're nearing the end, and we're sure the judges are curious to what's coming down the barrel next week. But before we do that, we have one last question to our guest judge. Because while this week was indeed extraordinary, it was really just scratching the surface. Maya, when we first started talking about what we were going to do for your brief, we had a very interesting conversation about makeup artistry. You shared a story about experiences fellow models and pageant competitors have had when makeup artists weren't trained to match or work with darker skin tones. You also mentioned that in many schools, training for this isn't standard or offered. We already know how important you think it is to include diversity in the curriculum, but what do you think it will take to see this change?
I think that I'm going to go back to my original, and it's the person, it's the people who will make the most change. I could sit here and preach about it all day long, but I feel like it's what you do about it, the actions that you take. So for me right now, it's educating. So right now, for even my students who are looking at me right now, I make sure that they know this kind of thing and that this is a real issue in the industry. And I was at a competition, what was it, 2-ish months ago, and there was an agent who runs a very big agency, a big modeling agency, and he said that the only way that we can get better is to educate and to learn. And this is something that we all see, we all know, but it's what we do about it to enforce it, make it better, to learn from it. So these things are always going to be issues. They shouldn't be, but they will be, and that's just the world we live in. But it's talking about them, educating them, acknowledging them, and doing our part to make sure that if someone doesn't have that knowledge, that they do now. And if we don't know, then don't pretend like we know. Ask the questions, get the knowledge. I love this industry and I wouldn't change it for the world. There's a lot of things that need to be worked on. And lately it's been doing a very big pendulum swing. There's like a big left over here and then a big right sometimes. But I think it's just about education and continuously growing.
Do you also think that if, do you as an educator within that schooling system that you're with, can more of you educators push for that type of thing to be taught?
I currently am right now. I have submitted a proposal even to my college saying that this is a curriculum that needs to be taught. And, you know, honestly, what they told me is there's not enough funding, which I feel like is a huge issue because this is something that should be just a given.
Yeah.
However, I think that if you really want something and you're willing to work for it and make it a change, then it's worth it. So I think if you have the power to be able to instigate like a big change or education, then do it. And if not, look for people who are willing to join you who can. I know that I'm right now working on a lot of workshops to teach this thing, create this thing, talk about it. And I subtly bring it up here and there. Like even when I was at that competition with all these models, I was at a modeling competition in Vancouver, and like just listening to everybody, I was like curious. I'm like, do you guys know about this? And they're like, oh yeah, we know. And so a collective, again, I think because it's a known issue, it's just about working towards what you can do with it.
Thank you, Maya. With that, we are excited to share next week's match brief for the Black and White Partner Challenge with guest judges Faith and Care of Nileet.
Hello, shooters, and congratulations on making it to week 5, Black and White. My name is Kier, and I'm one half of Nileet, a company that facilitates Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color to connect with service providers with the proper knowledge and skill sets to cater to both our hair and skin needs and wants. Growing up in the prairies, we struggled to find professionals who could provide personal services like hair and skin care, makeup artistry, and even tattoos. With this in mind, we decided to find a way of solving this by bringing clients and experts together in what is now known as Nileet. As you learned last week, training for makeup artistry and techniques for cutting and styling hair for the BIPOC community isn't standard or even offered in many aesthetic courses. This means that even if individuals wanted to learn, they lack the ability to gain that expertise. As you can see, there are 2 sides to the story, and that is what this week's challenge is about. Along with your partner, you will explore a topic that has 2 clear and distinct sides. Your topic can be political, cultural, social, environmental, or any other issue that you can see from both sides. You will create a pair of images that complement one another, and the only catch is that it must be shot in black and white. Shooters, your images are due no later than 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on Sunday, Feb 6th, 2022. Happy shooting.
So that is the challenge for next week. It is a partner challenge, and it is also a double elimination. We hope that you guys will enjoy this competition and this challenge in particular. Challengers, your team was randomly chosen by a generator, and you will be, will you get that at what, 7:30 tonight? Hope?
Yes, 7:30.
And then we will also, in Discord, we will open up the channels for you to collaborate and chat as well with your teammate.
Stacey's face right now is giving me life. She's like, yay!
So we don't want anybody to panic, but you know, collaborate and actually like really talk with each other so that you guys can be on the same path and make sure that you're going together, because the team with the lowest score will be the team that goes home. All right, so that's a wrap on week 4. Thank you again, TSR judges, challengers, and fans for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Bye.